Hello and welcome to the Three Wheel Podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan, and I am here with Pete Skelly, the man who is taller than me here in the office. How you doing, Pete?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, excellent. So we're getting together for our little quarterly powwow here, catch up on things.
Good to be back.
Good to have you in here. You've been busy with some community events now.
Yes, I have.
Excellent. We just did Oliver's here with me in the room, and we went to the world famous SharePoint Saturday.
It's SharePoint Saturday, Atlanta. Yeah,
yes,
it was,
Atlanta.
June 17th. Yeah.
Excellent. So, tell me a little bit. I just want to sort of cover some of the stuff that you do, maybe a little behind the scenes. What is it that you do for the community? You can talk about the specific events, and I know we also have the monthly get together with the what do you officially call it?
SharePoint user group. SharePoint and Office 365 user group.
Thank you. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
showing the love there. So just tell me more about what you do.
A little bit of a backstory. I've been involved in the community in Atlanta technical community in Atlanta for about the last almost 5 years now. And it started after my wife left her position at the CDC, because we were kind of a dual income family, and both of us were working with kids. It was real hard to be involved in the community. So about 5 years ago, I started to get involved, and about 3 years ago, really got heavily involved and became one of the co-organizers of the Office 365 and SharePoint user group here in Atlanta.
Nice.
And for about the past 5 years, have been involved in several of the conferences that go on in Atlanta. One being most recent, SharePoint Saturday, that we had this Saturday, and the Atlanta Code Camp, which is typically in the fall. This year is going to be September 16th.
Okay.
And then myself and Dan Addis and Tyler Bithell started a Cloud Saturday, and that was last year was the second annual, and this year's we're targeting early January 2018 for the no date picked yet, but those are the three kind of conferences that we do. And obviously Code Camp is quite large, so there's a lot of other folks that are involved in that. Planning committee wise, there's some I think 6 or 7 folks that are typically involved.
And these events are held in different places in the community, or where?
So because Cloud Saturday is a little smaller event and it's only the second year, Microsoft has typically sponsored that, and through sponsoring it has allowed us to use the Technology Center here in Alpharetta. So that's typically also a Saturday event. And that's a smaller venue. So typically, 4 or 5 tracks, and 5 sessions in each track per day, or for the day.
So SharePoint Saturday is on a Saturday? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm trying to say. And Cloud Saturday too, just if that
Cloud
wasn't
Saturday
clear.
is not on a Sunday?
Yeah, and no, it's not. Atlanta Code Camp, although there's no Saturday in the name, typically is on a Saturday as well. So, just to be clear.
Do people find that they do their best coding on a Saturday morning or something like that? Or
in all seriousness, we've kind of juggled and thrown around the idea of doing the conferences on a work day, and wondering if that would be better. Most of the events are free or a nominal charge, really for lunch. So the speakers that attend, they're there on their own dime. They're volunteering their time. We don't pay speakers. So the Saturday events, it can be hit or miss.
Yeah.
Especially in the spring and summer. If we pick the wrong week and everybody's on vacation, we could have low attendance. So it's a challenge. And there's a lot of events in the Southeast. Southeast is a pretty vibrant community between Nashville and Birmingham, Atlanta, Jacksonville. There's a whole slew of, SharePoint Saturday is just one, but there are many other conferences throughout the year. So,
okay.
Yeah. Other than that, monthly we have the SharePoint and Office 365 user group that meets at the Microsoft Alpharetta office, the MTC in Alpharetta, and that's run by myself, Dan Addis. Dan and Ron Jones started the user group about 9 years ago, a little over 9 years ago. And I've been, as I said, heavily involved in that in the last probably 3 to 4 years. those are our monthly events every third Monday night. So every third Monday we get together, and we could have one or two speakers, sometimes some short lightning talks, but they all center around, it depends. It varies. We try to mix it up so that there are some IT pro talks, some developer talks, what's new, how do people use certain pieces of SharePoint overall as a collaboration tool, as workflow, as are there products that people have used, and most of it's all community driven. So folks here in the Atlanta area, we sometimes bring in folks from other areas. This coming July, we'll have a speaker from Jacksonville, Ben Stedging, and he's doing some PowerShell reporting. We're on meetup.com. So if you're looking to find out any information, or if anybody's looking to find any information, they can visit meetup.com and just look for Office 365 and SharePoint in Atlanta, or any other group. I mean, there's tons, there's hundreds, if not, mid hundreds of user groups in the Atlanta area that range, all over the place. So.
What's been the most difficult thing about doing this, starting to get involved in the community and just trying to run these events? And what's been probably a bigger challenge than you expected it to be once when you initially took this on?
Two things. One that's going to really hit home to you, and you're going to say, "I told you so." The other is, and I'll say the other one first. Just getting speakers.
Yeah.
I mean, I think trying to get folks to realize that you don't have to know everything. You can be working on something and just share something you've learned. It may sound very funny or strange, but a couple of the best talks that I think I've heard are actually people talking about what they failed at. So somebody coming up and saying, I worked on this project and we had, X, Y, and Z failures before we succeeded. So kind of, really realizing, it takes a certain personality to speak on a regular basis, but getting speakers is extremely difficult. A lot of people have imposter syndrome, and I don't have anything to talk about, or what I'm doing isn't necessarily cutting edge, so I don't, people don't want to hear what I have to say, and it's far from the truth. I think a lot of folks would say, oh well, for in our case, are we working with Office 365, or do I know everything about Office 365 or the SharePoint framework, or am I hooking things up in Azure with Office 365? And those aren't necessarily the best topics. Some of the best topics are how am I using SharePoint out of the box and getting the most out of the most value out of that product. So it's just really hard finding speakers in general. The second thing that's really hard, that's in general across user group and any of the events. And second is marketing. That to me has been extremely difficult. I'm typically not the person that's I'm not a huge Facebook user. I'm not somebody that's typically kind of throwing things out there all the time from a social perspective. So trying to do that and trying to stay on top of publicizing the event, making sure everybody's aware of when things are occurring. Become a little bit better Twitter user, and a little bit better with Facebook and those types of things. But marketing is a huge challenge. I mean, just letting people know what's going on and making sure that folks are informed has been a big challenge. So it's been a stretch, trying to learn some new things. I know you use some marketing tools, but for me, it's like, okay, what can I use, quote, for free? So how do I schedule?
I do that. I have to do that a lot as well.
So how do I, how do we schedule tweets about the event? How do we use Facebook to publicize the event? What are we doing on the websites? Those are big challenges that as a quote, coder or an engineer, you don't necessarily think about, but they're vital. In anything, in just business in general, but community events especially. So.
No, it's tough. It's more difficult once you dig into it than you expect it to be. But it's challenging in a good way. It's definitely challenging. So, You've got the Code Camp that's coming up, and later. And tell me a little bit more about what is it? I've never attended a Code Camp.
Code Camp is a one-day conference, very similar to SharePoint Saturday or just a general technology event. But where SharePoint Saturday or Cloud Saturday are sort of niche, they focus on one specific area. Atlanta Code Camp, or Code Camps occur across the country. Atlanta's an instance of Code Camp, but they focus on anything. So where SharePoint Saturday may focus on Office 365, and you get a lot of things like Power Apps or how do I use content types, and those are focused areas. Code Camp it can be a wide range, so we can have anything from IoT to cloud, using Amazon, using C# in Amazon, for example. How do I use C# with Lambda functions, for example? Can I do that? Take your pick. It's a much broader spectrum. So that pulls quite a large attendance, typically in the close to 500, if not over, range of registrants. And the topics cover a much broader spectrum, so it's not a Microsoft specific.
Okay.
For example, last year we had a bunch of speakers that were IoT focused and cloud focused.
So the Code Camp is you're listening in on sessions. You're not actually. It's not like what do we do? Internally we have our
kind of lunch and learns where it's informative.
Informative, and then we have when we get together at later on
the
at
quarterly
night.
showcase,
or no, where we're actually hackathon. Thank you. I was having a senior moment there. So nobody's hacking anything at that point.
No,
the Code Camps.
We're actually working on one of those. One of the other community members here in Atlanta, Jared Rhodes, who is big in the IoT community. We're actually starting a hackathon for MedHack this year, which we're trying to focus for late summer. I'm kind of cursorily involved in that one, but that's hacking. That's going to be I think a 2-day coding event, 2 to 3 day actually. But Dan, Addis, and I have talked a lot about trying to do a hackathon for Office 365 specifically, and it's challenging. The 1-day event, trying to get a single day venue, those types of things, trying to find speakers for that is one challenge. But trying to have a hackathon where you're doing something for a full day, trying to get judges, that's a different challenge. We're trying to get there, but that's kind of new territory for us. So, we do want to do that. We've got a couple of ideas as far as trying to do a hackathon for Office add-ins, some of the newer technologies, either Office add-ins or SharePoint add-ins, or trying to bridge how do I do things in Azure, so that people get some exposure to those things. So.
Cool. I appreciate you doing all this stuff. I know sometimes it's a thankless job.
It's a lot more work than people think.
Yes, but I appreciate you doing it because I think it's important for us to there's a couple aspects of this. One is what we do on typical projects where you have to have a really well-educated customer. For some of the people who go to this, it's a part of the whole education process. It's also, I think for us as a growing company, is also looking for where's the next three-wheel person going to come from, and sometimes it's through doing these community events where you get to meet other people and stuff like that. So that's definitely beneficial. But I like that you guys have kept it. I've appreciated being a part of what you guys are doing. It's not overly. Some of these things it can be like showing up to a Georgia Tech party where there's one girl there and 67 guys where they're all consulting companies coming in, and it seems like these events there's just an overall good sense of people are just trying to learn. What are you trying to learn? I listen. Oliver and I listen in while we're down at the booth, and everybody down there is just trying. Nobody's overly salesy, and nobody's trying to. It's a really good environment that you guys have set up. So I appreciate that.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, it's really really good. So we enjoy being involved in that. We also liked the couches from. You probably saw my feedback on that. I don't know. I'm so adverse to sort of setting up that whole, we're recruiting.
A simple booth with a
simple
table
booth, just
and
table, sit down, let's talk.
Yeah.
What? Let's get real. So that was we enjoyed that. It was fun with the Jenga, having people come over to the Jenga. That was really nice. So appreciate what you're doing. And I guess if people want to get in touch with you, I guess you do check Twitter every once in a while. What's your handle on Twitter?
It's P Skelly on Twitter.
Excellent.
Obviously the same old places in LinkedIn.
Yep.
If anybody's looking for how to get involved in community or even just attending community events, meetup.com.
Meetup.com, okay.
SharePoint and Office 365 user group is the specific one for our monthly meetings, third Monday of every month. And get involved. And if you have any desire to speak, we're always looking for speakers.
Awesome.
And you do not have to be, kind of the world's expert. It's better to have some of those, questions. What am I learning? Just even if it's a 15-minute lightning talk quote, that you just want to say something you learned and something you think is cool, just to spark a conversation. So
that's great. So folks are looking to get involved in the community more and looking to be, there's the typical sign-up process, but it's also good. Reach out to Pete and let him know what you're trying to do, what you'd like to cover. And just the last question, since I have you here in the room, you're involved in our hiring. What types are we looking for? I can go jump on our job openings page, but anything you're looking for right now in specific for our next Threewell?
Right now, senior consultants or just kind of folks that are early in their career as well. So I think the exciting thing for us right now, from a Microsoft technology stack and Office 365 and SharePoint specifically, is some of the things that have changed in the last couple of years have opened the doors to what I would call standard or typical web developers.
Okay.
So definitely, I don't want to say using the term SharePoint developer is a bad thing, but SharePoint development now is becoming more and more
JavaScript development.
Yeah, if you know web development, if you know how to interact with web APIs, if you know TypeScript, etc., saying a SharePoint developer, it puts you in a box, right? And it's hard to even do any type of recruiting with that. So now I'm trying to change my kind of language to say web developer. It just happens to focus on SharePoint and Office 365 at this point, but the skills are becoming more and more transferable, where in the past they were a very specific tool set, and you were kind of like in a box. Well, I'm a SharePoint developer, and quote, limiting your career. There's none of that anymore. Basically, you're going to interact with Azure. You're going to interact with cloud services. You're going to have to learn some different patterns. You're going to have to learn TypeScript and web development in general, and then treating SharePoint and Office 365 and the graph and even on-prem, just like standard web development, is really where things are headed. So
cool. So
definitely looking for senior consultants and folks that are early in their career and look at web development in general, or that's really where we're headed.
Awesome. So again, reach out to Pete via Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're interested and learn more, and definitely drop by Threewell.com. And thank you for doing this, Pete. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thank you, Oliver, for sitting over there and listening to us and making sure everything's okay. And this is going to be your first post-production of a podcast, so you'll have to listen to this, Pete, and see if you give it its thumbs up or not. But it was fun. Thanks for doing this, Pete.
Thanks again.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.